Hello and welcome to Your Business, Your Wealth. My name is Paul Adams, and I am joined once again today by Mr. Corey Shepard. It's been a couple of weeks. He is back in the supervision chair as both my business partner, show co-host, and chief compliance officer for Sound Financial Group, which is one of the things that makes him most nervous is having me alone on the podcast. He has to listen to make sure I didn't say anything too untoward. But Corey, I'm glad you're back.
I am too, and at least I know it's mutual self-destruction. Like I might be going down, but you'd be going down with me. So
that's right.
Hopefully that keeps you held back a little bit.
Well, we've got some fun things to review with you guys today. We've got 3 big articles. One having to do with the changes on your 401k. Next is actually a bit of an article follow-up from a couple of weeks ago where the Fidelity report that came out and talked about the higher income you are, the lower replacement rate you need. And we're just going to talk about that a little bit as it relates to the importance that for you as a high income earner, what you set aside. The article might make you think you have an easier job, but it might actually be more difficult. We'll cover that. And then last but not least, we are going to totally lambast an article that is absolute clickbait.
Silliest article from Apple News. So silly they wouldn't even let me open it on my PC. And that's how silly it is.
And it is great insight into how we can get some interesting stuff from news articles, but we really have to think through implementation. Yeah. And is this article written for me? And all the more importance to have a coach and advisor that's co-piloting your financial future with you or helping you navigate it at a minimum. So with that, Corey, you ready for our first one?
I'm ready.
All right. So our first article is big changes coming to your 401k. And here's what you need to know from CNN Business. And like we've been doing the last couple of weeks, we called out some important quotes from the article rather than just scrolling all the way through it to talk about some of these changes. Now, one of the first is automatic enrollment. In what would be the largest change to your 401k program, Secure 2.0 would require employers to automatically enroll all eligible workers into their 401k plan at a savings rate of 3% of salary. So
we've had auto enrollment light for about 20 years. This is auto enrollment heavy. So it's like going from Bud Light to Bud Heavy.
Yes, exactly. Well, and it's there have been some good studies that have pointed to this really working well. One of the often cited studies is actually, I think it was out of New Zealand, when they started making people opt out of their organ donor card. And by opting out instead of opting in, they found that organ donation checkbox on the driver's license went way, way up. And they're noticing the same thing with 401k plans. And they find it helps the lowest income people the most. Although I think time will tell whether or not the folks that are auto-enrolled actually keep their money invested and it actually translates to more retirement income for them.
Yeah. Now, I will say it probably ends up better than nothing. The only concern I have is that people not think that 3% is enough for most people. Like they're just like, oh, it's at 3. And of course it automatically goes up each year to a certain, I forget what the top end amount is, like 10. Yeah. So 10, is 10 even enough for a lot of people?
Well, the answer would be no.
But it's better than nothing. I think step in the right direction.
Indeed. Well, and that brings us to the next topic of the article, which is that pre-retirees get the chance to save more, which I was pretty hopeful about when I started reading this section. But as you get into it, the catch-up contributions just for people ages 62, 63, and 64, so 3 years, can increase their catch-up contributions to $10,000 a year, up from $6,500 now. Beginning in 2023, these catch-up contributions would be taxed as Roth contributions, meaning they'd be taxed before being invested for retirement, though earnings would be indexed for inflation. Now, this is a little bit of where even a good article with some good information can get things wrong. I think what they're supposed to say here from what I've read on this bill is though contributions would be indexed for inflation because the 401k doesn't control your income.
Right.
But then there's this next part, and there's a financial advisor, Sri Reddy is his name. He's with Principal Financial, somewhere in their retirement department that creates retirement products. He wrote, "People generally earn more as they age," says Reddy, "and people in their 60s are typically earning more than they spend. Giving them the ability to increase their contribution makes a huge difference in retirement savings." Y'all, that end of that quote right there is the biggest pile of bull manure I have seen in an article, short of outright lying. And here's what I mean by that. This is, again, good information, mostly factual, other than what appears to be some Scribner errors in the writing of the article. But we got to keep in mind, these folks these financial writers especially, have these deadlines, and article after article they have to get out, sometimes multiple a day. And so they may not put much thinking into even who they quote, but $3,500 extra you can save per year for 3 years is not going to make a huge difference in retirement savings period. But they're happy to kind of couch it like it is because it forwards the conversation for one of their key products, in this case for Principal, is their retirement accounts.
It's not just 50 and over. It's just for those 3 years that they can do more.
That's
really weird.
But it's some benefit to some constituency, which is half the battle for politicians. You know, what can we get past that helps some group and doesn't make any other group too mad? So back to our next one. You can pay off student loan debt while saving. Now, I'm going to have to move our video here a little bit, hopefully getting the rest of this quote in. Pay off student loan debt while saving. Employers could treat students. So this one is optional. Now, remember, it said you will have to enroll the employees. But this is an option for employers. Employers could treat student loan debt repayments as elective retirement account deferrals and provide a matching contribution to their 401ks. So if you paid off $1,000 in student loan debt, it would be the same as putting $1,000 into a retirement plan as far as matching goes. Now, what I highlighted in yellow, this next line, is another one that's just a financial journalist whose primary training is probably not in personal or macroeconomic finance. It's probably in journalism of some sort. If a company matches by 6%, that's an extra $60 in savings. That is not how 401k matches work. They always match a percentage of what you put in. 100% match to 3%, and then 50 cents on the dollar for the next 3, or something like that. Or it might be 50 cents on the dollar for the first 6% of your deferral. That would mean this would be an extra $500 contribution you as an employer would have the opportunity to make if you wanted to add this provision to your plan. And by the way, this plan has only gone through Congress so far. It still has to go through the Senate. But you'll notice these provisions we're walking through here, unless somebody makes it part of a bigger omnibus package, the risk of making a lot of people mad. This isn't going to make a lot of people mad. It's mostly increasing some benefits. And for those of you out there as business owners, we're always wary, certainly as business owners, what are these new programs going to cost us in terms of additional administrative overhead? It will do that. But in reality, there's probably nothing in this bill that puts people in a position that they're going to get massive opposition.
No. And here's the weird part about how this is structured in the article. If you're already maxing out your 401k, or putting $1,000 a year only into your 401k, then this would just be, I could switch that so it pays down my student loans and I'm not sacrificing my match. So it's not really extra dollars if you're already doing it. And if you're not already doing it, then you got to go find the $1,000 in their example. So it's even more money that you're putting away that you weren't. So it's nice, but it's not like shocking me of like, oh, this is going to change everyone's life.
Yep. That's exactly what I feel as well. All right. Here's another one that's going to delay the penalties.
It's like a rerun of Seinfeld. That's what a lot of this is. It's like, it's great, it's comfortable, it's fun for a few minutes, but it's not like it's just, my mind was blown years ago, and I'm remembering that, but it's not like re-blowing my mind.
Indeed, yes. Americans are retiring later and living longer. So during the COVID CARES Act, they moved the required minimum distribution age out to age 72 from 70 and a half. They're proposing in this that they would move it out to 75 and that they would drop, so required minimum distributions, or as I like to call it, the sword of Damocles hanging over the head of every retiree with a retirement plan. That sword of Damocles went from a 50% penalty to a 25% penalty. So probably a good thing. I still don't think people are going to go, well, it's only 25. I won't take my required minimum distribution. They're still going to take it. But at least the sword of Damocles is perhaps slightly more dull than it was prior.
Well, it gives everyone a few more years time to think about repositioning assets so that they're not backed into a corner with too much forced minimum income, which
Indeed.
is what we also call these. Yeah.
Yep. Now, here's another one that I think the kind of last quote from this article, I think it should really get some people's attention. And that is, under the proposed act, companies that offer a 401k plan will be required, so this is again a required thing, to allow part-time employees who work at least 500 hours a year for 2 years, a little under 10 hours a week, to contribute to a retirement account that would include part-time workers, gig employees, freelancers, caregivers, and independent contractors. Now, I don't know what kind of administrative mess that's going to be, but I think big. And here's why I think it could be a big administrative mess. Imagine right now that you have something like a podcast, and you pay contractors to work on that podcast, and you pay some video people to work on the video. That if they put in over a certain amount of hours, are we going to be required to put those people inside of our company's 401k? I don't know. But it increases the administrative overhead. And the thing that I think is potentially a big legislative error about this, just to talk a little bit of politics, is the reason many people have independent contractor relationships is because they want to do some of those things on their own, SEP IRAs, et cetera. They want the freedom and autonomy to work when it works for them, et cetera. If we put them in the position that they were required to participate in our 401k, we might actually be messing up some of their own retirement plans. That's kind of the first thing jumps out to me. Not to mention, how much more work do we have to show that we're compliant in giving our employees the right to participate in the 401k? So if anybody wanted to be upset and send a note to their representative about any provisions of that would probably be the one that I would point to that's probably going to create the administrative headache, is the part-time compliance and the potential to have to include independent workers and gig economy workers.
Yeah.
So, Ryan, you ready for the next one, Corey?
I'm ready.
So this is going to pick up on what we talked about a little bit a couple of podcasts ago, where Fidelity did a big report about how much money it's going to take for you to be able to retire, what the replacement rates are going to be. Well, JP Morgan came out with a more thorough study of it, showing how much you need to replace as a percent of your income. Now, for the sake of our conversation, the only thing I extracted out was these different retirement savings rates. And Corey, I can't even get us off the screen for this one, so I'll just cover up our $30,000 folks. So we'll just start at $60,000. If $60,000 in pre-retirement income, you need a replacement rate of 93%. So one way to easy think about this, you see it dropping the more income you have, is that you likely have more surplus in your life today while working. Surplus and margins allowing you to give, allowing you to save, allowing you to do some home improvement projects, etc., that you have to replace a higher ratio of your total income the lower your income is.
Because the lower it is, that's the less negotiable those spending things are.
Yes. The easiest way, I think, to explain it exactly.
Yeah.
And so once you get over 100,
I don't necessarily agree, but we can go on for now.
Yep. So, and this is where I think some of that disagreement comes from, Corey, is if we look at, I'm just going to go to our next quote from the article here, and you can see that when you get up around 300,000 of income, which is where a lot of our clients are there and above. So you have 300,000, it's a 72% replacement rate. Now there's a couple of things that makes that 72% a lot harder to hit for you. If you were the person who's making 60,000 a year, you can do some Social Security calculator estimates, and what you're going to find are things like, you're going to have $2,000 a month. Ooh, everybody hear that? That is Quinn making a guest appearance on Corey's microphone. She's having to have extra lungs to get through his soundproofing, but
That's impressive. Like, I'm not even mad. Like,
that's Corey's little girl with a good set of lungs. We'll have her on the podcast shortly.
Yeah.
So, but your income of 60,000, of that portion that you need to replace, about 90%, a good chunk of it, maybe $2,000 a month, is going to be replaced by your Social Security. And yet, the $300,000 income isn't going to get anywhere near that kind of replacement rate from Social Security. So you have to be responsible for effectively all of it when you are at that level of income earning.
And what I'm hearing, basically the thesis of this article is the higher your income level, the bigger drop down in lifestyle you're going to be okay with when you retire. Right? Like 300,000, it's saying, oh, well, you've been living with this kind of car and keeping this kind of house and all this, but as soon as you hit 65, like most of that stuff you'll be okay doing away with, and it'll just be basics.
I actually think it comes more from the fact that people in their later years pre-retirement making good income save just a much larger portion of it.
Okay. That I would be okay with, because if you're saving 30%, then you don't need that replacement. But
indeed. But now, if we look at that in that article, the 300,000 requires a replacement rate of 72%. So that's about $216,000. Do you want to double check I did that right in my head, Corey? 72% of 300,000, I think, is 216,000. Cool. Yeah. Nice. This is where I need a button that I push that goes, Paul, you were right. Maybe in Corey's voice. Miranda, if you're listening, just take a show note. So we can piece together from other things Corey says in meetings. Yeah. So, but the idea is you've got to come up with $216,000 to replace your income, $216,000 a year. Now, in simple capital at work, that means about $5.4 million of capital at work outside of your home. And that is a lot more difficult for you to build up than perhaps if I go back to our lower income rates. If let's go to our $60,000 person that has to replace 93%. Well, of that 93%, that's going to be about 55,000-ish of replacement. But of that, if 24 of that is handled by Social Security, and now you just have to have 20,000, that's like $500,000, or maybe just paying off your house and doing a reverse mortgage would be enough. And so the moral of the story I would want people to take away from this article, and all these articles, of course, are right in the description. You can go right to our webpage. We have them all listed out so you can read them yourself. I think too many people might read that article, Corey, and go down the path of, well, I'm going to be okay. I don't have to save as much as a percentage of my income because I'm high income. It's like, oh, it's a lot bigger lift that you have than the person making $100,000 a year. Mm-hmm. Now for our sacrificial article of the day.
Oh my gosh.
The one that I think we should put on the altar and set fire to.
I love, by the way, that I sent this to you on my iPhone, and then tried to open it from our shared set of links on my PC and couldn't even get into Apple News. Like, they didn't even have a way for me to get into it.
Indeed.
Which is the first part that has me prickly right now.
Well, and go ahead, read it off. I want you to read it.
5 lessons to take from millionaires who are really good with money.
Now, by the way, just hearing the article title, because I see it show up in a feed in Microsoft Teams that Corey and Miranda and I share, and I was like, hey, this might be kind of a banger little article to go over. Certainly sounds like it in the title.
Right. And I'm thinking, okay, who are the people that they're going to reference? Because being a millionaire actually doesn't mean you're necessarily really good with money, because there's some people who can really earn money, but then are really bad at doing anything with it afterward, or they're good at doing stuff with it. They're bad at accumulating it. So there's no people's names in here, no reference of who these mysterious millionaires are. The first thing,
well, I was going to say right before you hit the first point, I jump in with this. The first like 2 sentences. Life would be a whole lot easier if somebody would just Venmo us 1 million. By the way, probably not. If you didn't accumulate the million, for most people, if an extra million dropped in your life and you did not have the capacity to accumulate the million on your own, it wouldn't help you. There's been more than enough studies that would absolutely damage you. But unfortunately, the chance of that happening is probably zero. Mainly because Venmo doesn't allow transactions that large anyway, in quotes, or in parentheses. But even though our chances of becoming a millionaire are slim, we could still manage our money like one. Now, I'm going to start right there. In today's world, the only thing that's going to stop you from becoming a millionaire is you and your spending habits. We have countless examples of people working very regular jobs, non-high school educated, who end up retiring perfectly fine and leaving their kids millions and millions of dollars, all because they made simple decisions to say no to certain lifestyle expenditures over long horizons of time. And when you read something like this, it will cue you in immediately that this article is not written for you, at least not you, the you that's listening to this podcast. Because the things that we talk about on this podcast generally deal with people in households that have higher income. And so if you're hearing that as like, ooh, that resonates with me, then I just got to tell you, this probably isn't your podcast. Because we'll tell you that is totally in your control. Okay, Corey, thank you. That was my small rant. Are you going to the first point?
Yeah. Well, and I think I'll stop. I'll wait on a point that I'm going to make at the end after we talk about these. So number one, spend $10 to buy an apartment building. So what is this? It's actually an affiliate link to a company called Fundrise, where you can have fractional shares of real estate. So you can put $10 in and own a little bit. It's kind of a mutual fund for real estate at the end of the day. So they're saying, oh, well, people get wealthy investing in real estate, so you could invest in real estate. Okay, there's another one down here that this is going to have in common with, but
I was going to say, by the way, there's no millionaires that did it by investing with groups of other people that just had $10, except for maybe the founders of Fundrise.
Right.
Like they didn't do it that way. We've talked on the podcast many times. If you treat real estate investment like you would business ownership, you're going to have the greatest likelihood of success. But that means you got a lot to learn because of how much your human capital really matters in that transaction, where it doesn't matter that much when you're buying a CD at a bank or building a portfolio. So sorry, Corey, where were you going next?
Well, next is cancel your car insurance. Now, no, I assure you, anyone who has a lot of assets, either real estate and or investment, has done something to protect, like they're protecting those assets against the things that they can't control. So they're not canceling their car insurance, but what it actually is directing you to is another affiliate link for Insured Nation. It's really change your car insurance, save money on your car insurance. And they say this website could save up to $500 a year. Well, the target market for this article probably isn't already paying $500 a year total in car insurance. So how can they actually save that much? And paying as little as $19 a month for car insurance, it's going to save you a little money, but it's a drop in the bucket in the grand scheme of accumulating those millions. Pay off your credit cards is number 3. Well, but it's not. It's sign up for this service called Fiona that can help you pay off your credit cards. It's really just refinancing your credit card debt. More
affiliate links to garner you into being able to transact with the penny hoarders affiliate relationships.
And there's plenty of studies that if people have been doing this with home mortgages for a long time, equity has grown in their home, you got this credit card debt, we're going to roll it all into a smaller interest mortgage spread out over 30 years. That'll help. Well, without addressing whatever got the credit card to build up in the first place, people are right back in the same spot within a few years.
Absolutely.
Time and time again. Earn up to 25% interest by investing in art.
Oh my goodness.
So Masterworks, another affiliate link. This is not real estate this time, like Fundrise. It's multi-million-dollar works of art. I just think, and they say you can buy shares of these artworks for as little as $20. Well, I would say if all you've got kicking around is $20 left over at the end of the month to do something with, buying art should probably not be it.
No.
And
put it down on that credit card debt from
this, right. So this was the parallel that I was going to draw. They're talking about doing things like millionaires, but I think that there's foundational principles and lifestyle choices of millionaires. And there's foundational principles that happen first that then lead to the ability to do things like invest in art, have some excess capital. Because I think most of the people, like if it's a multi-million-dollar artwork, you had to have done something to get the capital together to start investing in that artwork. No one did it by buying $20 worth of one with a bunch of other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then
last,
I can't even, Paul, you have to read this one. I can't even.
Okay, guys, if you're not watching the video online, you're not even going to believe when I say this. Boost your bank account by playing bingo is the 5th step. So I guess there's some app called Bingo Cash that you get to play bingo with your spending. And it's like, maybe, I mean, it's like playing the credit card points game, except no millionaire is telling anybody to do this. It is and by the way, these articles are floating around out there. And I don't just mean from the penny hoarder in this case. I think this is, I should be careful. I don't know if the penny hoarder is written by a man or a woman, but when you write an article like this, they should spell hoarder different, like with a W in the front. Because you're basically taking your entire audience and you're just totally monetizing them to say, you could be like a millionaire, do these things. Like there's no millionaire wasting their time playing bingo with their cash spending at all, unless they happen to be so wealthy that they have nothing extra to do with their time and they're tired of words with friends, then maybe they would do this. So... But as you guys look at this stuff and we're analyzing this, one of the things we want you to take away from today's conversation is whether you're a business owner or an executive, things are going to change in the 401k probably in the next year. And you're going to have some things your company that you work for or your company, if you're the owner, are going to have to navigate around, like, what do we do about these part-time employees? Do we want independent contractors? What are we going to do with student loan payments? For those of you that are clients of ours, we'll be talking about those things as the new regulations roll out. Second is that you still have a lot of work to do as it relates to building up enough retirement assets. That even though studies show that you as a high income earner north of $300,000 don't have the same replacement rate. You know, our clients that make over $1 million a year, most of them are planning on retiring on way less than the $1 million a year, but they still have to set aside a really big chunk of money. And you've got a bigger headwind of taxes on your earnings to deal with along the way. It's more of a reason to tilt in with a coach and advisor, not less of a reason to do so. And last but not least, watch out for these ridiculous listicles, articles that are sponsored, because they literally make a promise about what kind of advice is contained in the article, and reading the article isn't even worth your time. So with that, Corey, anything else you want to leave our audience off with today?
This has been fun and aggravating and wonderful. The things we have to read to help you all. We're happy to do it. Sometimes it's like I have to expose myself to all this. Yeah.
We tune in to the financial news so that you don't have to, allowing us to be a contribution to helping you design and build a good life.